Very simple, key steps to follow, do's and don'ts to watch your credit during the pandemic. We're joined today by Nathan Grant, a senior credit industry analyst with Credit Card Insider. It's great to see you, Nathan. Thanks for making time.
Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate it. And we were talking before we got started about how near and dear to you this topic is, right? Maintaining credit and trying to maybe either restore or establish or just get your credit back on track. Do's and don'ts during the pandemic are important to keep in mind.
Yeah, so it's a big responsibility to use credit. So we want to make sure that people are doing the right things and not doing the things they shouldn't. One of the first things you want to do during especially a time like this is contact your credit card issuers and your banks. They're both taking steps to provide relief to their customers during the pandemic, and everyone's doing something a little differently, and sometimes even on a case-by-case basis, depending on the issue. So before you make a plan of action for yourself, you'll want to know what options you have available. So starting there, contacting your bankers and issuers, that's probably the best first step for you. And some of the relief that's being offered during this time could include waived late fees or deferred payments, and sometimes even lowered interest rates. So you want to find out if any of those options are available to you.
We've been having conversations like this during this journey of what's going on right now. And one of the things that resonates early is contacting those issuers, contacting the banks, being in those conversations early. Don't wait until things are due. Should you even be waiting until you really feel like you're in the middle of needing help? Should it be on the head end to best understand those policies?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that a lot of times people sign up for credit cards without even really reading the fine print. And that can save you money if you're signing up for something that has like really high interest rates and stuff too. But it also is helpful because there might be benefits and rewards available through your credit card that you might not be aware of. So nothing wrong, especially nowadays when all your credit cards have really good detailed apps and stuff as well. You can find all that stuff early on. And then of course, in the time like this, it's even more important than ever to see what tools you have at your disposal.
And then having those industries really as a resource to maybe figure out some options. There's some notes here that suggest maybe a balance transfer card could be something to explore.
Another thing that you want to do during the pandemic, if your credit scores and other factors are basically beneficial towards doing one of this, is applying for a personal loan or a balance transfer credit card. Now, either of these options, like I said, are dependent on you being approved, which could have to do with your credit scores. So don't lean on them as like a guaranteed solution to fix any financial tension brought on by the pandemic, but they could both be very helpful tools for you. Personal loans often have lower interest rates than credit cards. So if your credit scores are in good shape, consider applying for a personal loan to pay off some of the higher interest debt that you might have. If you're making multiple payments on several different debts like credit cards, each month, consolidating those into one single monthly payment using a personal loan can not only save you that money on interest for each of those accounts, but also can help reduce just the stress of juggling so much at once, especially in a trying time like this. If that's not an option you want to explore, you might get balance transfer offers in the mail from your existing relationships with credit card issuers. Sometimes you'll recycle those thinking that it might not be beneficial to you right now, but times like these are where that actually might be just the right solution for you. Balance transfer credit card gives you a 0% introductory APR period where you can pay off a balance over time interest free. That'll save you money for other important things during the pandemic. So it's very important for that regard. But also, it comes with a lot of things you just got to be careful of as well. You might see balance transfer cards that offer deferred interest financing. And that basically means you won't be charged interest during that period. It defers the interest. But when it specifically says deferred interest period, if you even have $1 left on that initial balance transfer that you put on the card, that $1 left will actually charge you interest on the entire starting balance. So if you can pay it off in full by that end of that promotional period, you're good to go. But if you're not confident that you can pay off that starting balance by the end of whatever the deferred interest period is, it could actually damage you much more later on. So you want to be very careful with that. But both of those could be very helpful options in this time.
Definitely some things to consider. Nathan, we have about a minute left, and I want to run through. You have another do with an asterisk, and then a couple of don'ts to be on the lookout for.
Well, the last thing I'd say to do is kind of self-explanatory, but reevaluate your budget and cut out any unnecessary expenses. Because if you have lost a job because of the pandemic or something, you want to free up some of that money to more important things. And that's where I think focusing on any high interest debt, paying that down. Each time you pay off something that might be costing you interest month to month, you can now funnel that money saved towards the next thing and really get yourself out of the quicksand. Switching gears to don'ts. Most important thing you want to do is just don't make late payments. Your payment history is actually the greatest factor in determining your credit scores on all scoring models, whether it's FICO or one of the other ones. So even a single late payment could last on your credit reports for up to 7 years. And so that's like well beyond where you might be able to turn things around during the pandemic. You still have something on your credit reports for years to come. The best case scenario when paying off debt is to pay as much as possible over the minimum payment that you can, but at least making the minimum will help you avoid that missed payment. Once you're able to make the larger payments, definitely make those next so you're not impacting your credit scores in other ways. And then the last thing I'd say is don't max out your balances, because you might want to use this like a credit card as like a crutch during a time like this. But if you're maxing out your balances, that's going to affect your credit scores in other ways. And just a good rule of thumb is never using a credit card for something that you know you won't be able to pay in full by the next due date. So that's something to keep in mind. That's pretty much the high level things you want to keep in mind during this time, because everything's extra careful and extra important during a pandemic.
Well, Nathan Grant with Credit Card Insider. He's a senior credit industry analyst. Thank you for your insights today. We appreciate them.
Thank you so much. Stay safe.
You too. Great information coming from Nathan, and we want to be sure that we'll share this link so you can connect on WTVR.com/VTM.